Welcome back to the Anachroschism. When we left off last time, the party had done some stuff with split versions of it, and they did a whole thing. And we resume with them heading back. But first, let's check in with the folks at the ranch as we head into the late evening after a fine meal and a hard day's work on the farm. Tessian, Thea, Grail, and Grail's mother, Millicent, are all chilling at the ranch. What you guys up to, if anything?
You bunch of douchebags.
Just hanging out. I think we were gonna head in for dinner and maybe like help out with that.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
I think we had done that last time, and you guys had a conversation over dinner.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So with the meal behind you, feeling very full and satisfied and content, is there anything else you guys would like to do in the evening time?
How long has it been since our group left?
At this point, after dinner, probably like 3.5, 4 hours. So, knowing the distance to the Shademire from here, it's probably about when they're getting there.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say we could just kind of like head out to see if we could meet them, but I think we'd probably stay put. I would probably stay put. I don't know. I can't think of anything else to do. What should we do?
Tessian, is there like a... I know you described this at one point, so bear with me. Is there like a barn or like... How many stories are in this house that Grail has?
House is 2 stories.
Okay.
There is a barn.
Okay. Tessian wants to like maybe do some stargazing or something. Like kind of hang out on the roof, that kind of thing.
How romantic.
So
Thea does not join him.
Never mind.
She certainly doesn't have to.
No, she probably will.
But he will offer it. It's been a while since he's had we've been safe enough to sort of do something like this. So you know, like camping in the woods.
I can show you kind of like the barn, how to get up there on the roof, but I will probably just show you and then let you guys have a little time to yourself.
I mean, Tessian would probably offer. You're willing to join us for some stargazing, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I'll probably hang out with my mom.
Okay.
Give you guys some alone time, and I can chill with my mom.
I hope saying mom like that's not going to become a thing. I don't know if I could handle that.
My mom.
Mom.
Where's Tessian and Thea staying, I guess? Is there like a guest room or like, we got to hang out on the couch?
There are a couple of guest rooms, yes, besides the ones that are still set aside for Grail and for Holden. There are a couple of guest rooms that are available to you guys, and then maybe the others if they come back or whatever that looks like. So there's a room in the main house. Obviously, the barn has, hay and stuff that you could sleep on, I guess, if you really wanted to be closer to nature, but probably not.
Well, I guess, is there, I mean, this is all minor, but if there's like a guest bedroom on the second story with like a window, we could just climb out onto the roof from there or whatever, maybe, or I don't know.
There is more than one guest bedroom on the second floor, and going out the window will give you access to the roof.
Then that's what Tessian will do. It'll be easy to just go to bed after that then, instead of having to like, reverse break into this house to get back into our room.
Yeah, because your pickpocket's already going to be inside it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically explaining what you're looking for, Grail can point you in the right direction to this bedroom. Here you can get out there. Be careful not to fall, blah, blah, blah. And Thea's excited about the prospect of it, so she heads out there with you.
Yeah, that's basically it. Tessian is he hasn't had a chance to kind of just sit, look at the stars, just sort of see what the night sky's at, just sort of, just kind of catch up with Thea, maybe where she's, what she's been up to. I mean, we've been traveling a bit, but I'm sure they haven't covered everything that's happened. He's been catching up with her. Now she can kind of catch up with him, vice versa. Yeah, just pretty much that, kind of get an opinion of what she thinks of everybody, how they, do you think they're all right out there in the woods, stuff like that sort of thing.
She says, Grail's mother didn't seem all that worried about him, so if anything, it might be a bit extra of them to have gone, but if nothing else, it's peace of mind, and who knows, maybe they did run into something. Either way, your friends have shown themselves to be more than capable.
And Tyson's like, well, that they are. In fact, I think they sometimes think themselves too capable, but I'll admit they get things done, even if it is a little messy from time to time.
So she kind of like leans into your shoulder kind of playfully for a moment, and she goes, so, and she checks kind of behind her to make sure the window's closed. She says, this is kind of an opportunity. Not that you're really one to hold your tongue, but is there anything about the group that you've been holding back on? Any troubles along the way so far?
God. He probably just sort of like, I don't know, rests his head on hers and is like, well, there have been some problems here and there. And I don't know that I'm going to sit here and go through them all, but he probably describes his struggles with Isaac and how things went with that, our little execution squad thing we did in the old people's house.
Hey, it was not execution, it was only multiple torturers.
Right. The whole we keep getting put in these bad situations. If Isaac hadn't stepped in and suddenly tried to save these people that we were trying to get rid of, that they were bandits, this whole thing of just he basically just doesn't think Isaac really knows what Isaac wants. And Isaac seems to be caught in this loop of wanting to make a difference for good, but not being willing to really commit to it. That sort of thing. And it's been frustrating, but he hopes that Isaac's maybe turned a new leaf. But then there was the whole thing with denying the circlet and all that stuff. And a lot of it focuses on Isaac, but he's Karash has done really well. He thinks Karash has taken, he's a man of he's a simple man, but he's honorable, and he's willing to do what needs to be done to protect Lena and see that people are protected. He's a fan of that, and Tessie's, of course, Lena's doing really well. She's really come into her own. I think she's still got a lot to learn, but she's started to, I think, take ownership of our group and our actions. And that's good. I've got high hopes for her and everything. She's taught me a few things. She knows more than I think she realizes. And then, Grail is, and he checks to make sure Grail's not there. And, Grail's she's very dangerous, very capable. She's, she may not realize it, but her upbringing here has turned her into, a formidable combatant when the need arises. But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if she keeps a bit too many things close to the chest. I'm not too sure she trusts me all the way. And he kind of references all this stuff with her brother, because we talked about that, and he did not know about that. So, he thinks, he's like, I think Isaac might be a bit of a bad influence on her, but I think she's a good influence on him, so perhaps it'll all work itself out.
And she kind of pokes you in the side a little bit with her finger, gently, not to hurt, and she goes, well, you found out up close and personal how dangerous she can be, right?
And he's like, oh, yes, actually. And he lifts up his shirt, and he's got a little scar, because I'm assuming a critical will still leave a scar when I get backstabbed by my friend. Mm-hmm. So
she says,
listen, I was in love. Okay.
It was a first kiss. It's very protective.
Yes.
She says, well, it's only been a couple of days at this point, but I've always felt I was a decent judge of character. It seems like they all have good motivations. It seems like they're all capable. I think, ultimately, you'll be a force for good. But I also worry a bit. I mean, as you know, I've been traveling more and more recently, trying to find an answer or two in this world, one for our problem, one for others, and I don't know. I feel like the ways of this world are broken, and I'm not sure how to fix them.
And Tessian is like, well, how so? What have you seen?
She says, well, it sort of goes part and parcel with what you've described in your journeys. I'll grant you, the eastern part of Aramea is a little more lawless than the rest of it, or at least out of sorts. I still believe in the royal family. I think at the top, the rulers of this country want what's best for its citizens, but I worry that it's not being dispersed to some of the lower level ones. I think there are still plenty of people who have their best interests of both themselves and the people they rule over in mind. But I also think that there are those out there who are taking advantage of the situation. And what worries me most is that the Empress isn't doing more about it.
I mean, Tessin then kind of takes this moment to be like, well, we have, I'm not sure that we mentioned it, but I know that the Empress has dispatched the, Crusaders. That was the name, right?
Of
No?
Derek Rothwell's group and them?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's Crusaders.
We are working with the Crusaders. They are aware of this, this sort of corruption that's been happening. So I wouldn't say that she isn't taking action, but, and he kind of thinks for a second. He's like, I'll admit the speed at which things are moving is slow. And the fact that an entire slaving operation can be happening at this side, so close to Black Harbor, concerns me a great deal, and makes me wonder if things are potentially worse in the more metropolitan areas or not. It's so hard to tell these days who gives who allows what within their territory. I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think the nobles need a firmer hand from the top, but well, I think the Empress is afraid to make any strong moves. I share your concern.
She says, I've interacted with the Crusaders quite a bit, and I am fans of their work. I think they are measured and respectful, and you rarely hear tale of any of their members getting out of line. Whatever culture they breed there is a strong one. I just don't know if the Empress redoubling their efforts is enough, because by their nature they're sort of forced to be reactionary. They have to assess things that have happened and then deal with them accordingly, and sometimes they can do good work that way, but a lot of times they're not preemptive. They respond to things when they happen. They put out fires as they spark, but the way things are headed, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
And Tessia nods. He's like, huh? I feel you've got the right of it as usual, love, but I will say that I'm hoping this conatus of Lena's will be the instigator for something more proactive in Aramea here. I've discussed some of this with the group, but it's my hopes that we will be able to use this, leverage it, to get the Sowenwood to open up with Black Harbor and the surrounding region, and hopefully, through an influx of what they know, do some good, give some hope to, as you rightly pointed out, this often more lawless region of the continent. I think the Sowenwood can be a linchpin in a more united Aramea, but whatever's happening with Lena's parents, her father in particular, I think the conatus is going to be instrumental in fixing it and setting us on a right path. That's why I'm here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd be there for Lena anyway, but there's something greater at play here.
And Thea kind of nods. She says, I also will tell you in confidence, obviously, but I trust you more than anyone. I've never really interacted with the Empress, Amelia, much, but I did get to know her sister, Rezia, a little bit. And while she could never truly disclose what was happening, I fear there may be more external pressure on the Empress than anyone realizes, and some of the events that are unfolding across the continent would seem to back that up. I guess all of this is just a way to say, be careful. You always are. I'm not worried about you, but just the more you're going to be traveling, the more things you may see, and the more of the seedy underbelly that may be exposed along the way.
And Tessian definitely considers this. And he's like, so you're saying that we may not have the kind of protection from the top that we should?
I don't think so. I mean, your name carries some clout, and as far as I know, there's been no reason whatsoever to think that your family is not loyal to the Empress or doing what's best for Black Harbor. We've never seen anything like that. But that doesn't extend outside of the borders of Black Harbor. And while your name will still have some worth to some other people, there will be others who just as easily cast that aside as though it were meaningless. My biggest concern, honestly, is that you have always been wanting to play things by the book, and I think you should still do that, don't get me wrong. But there may be times where if your opponents or your enemies or the people that you're running into are not willing to do so, you may have to bend that as well.
And Tessian definitely kind of, honestly, I'm gonna say, can I roll an insight on Thea? This is kind of big for Tessian. She's sort of his moral compass in a way, to make sure that he kind of, he likes to follow the rules, but he gets a lot of that from her. So he kind of wants to see if this is true. She's not under some other influence. She's not afraid of something or whatever. She's,
You can roll an insight check.
I can't wait to roll low, and it doesn't matter. And
4. She is talking. No, I have
14.
14.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as though this is coming from a place of fear or from some kind of outside influence. It seems, just from getting a read on her, and you can kind of pick up her subtle tics and cues more than pretty much anybody, that it's sort of a world weariness in a sense, that that she's been separated you from the better part of about 6 months now, traveling on her own. Having graduated a couple of years ago, she's been doing that a lot, but even more so recently. And it just seems like there's that hint behind her calm visage where you can kind of see she has seen some things. Nothing horrible, but to the point where she must have encountered something similar to what you have in your travels in a number of places that have made her maybe reevaluate her position as well. Okay.
Well, Tessian definitely, he nods and kind of gives it some thought and kind of leans back and kind of takes in the stars a little bit. And he's like, well, the same goes for you then, my love. I want you to stay safe, and I'll take your words to heart. If something arises that needs to be fixed, I'll do what's necessary to see it through.
I believe in the system, and I believe in a lot of the people involved in it. I just worry that there are not those that share those beliefs, and they will be willing to, if anything, almost use it against us, knowing that we have such traditions and such strict lineages in a lot of these major cities across Aramea that it's almost exploitable for some folks. And I feel like we should be doing what's best for everyone, whether or not it's what's been done in the past or what is expected of us now. That's all.
Tessian sort of smiles, and he's just like, well, Black Harbor's never had the best reputation, so I suppose it won't matter that much if I play to stereotype then. Perhaps it's time that I be the black sheep if necessary.
She kind of leans her head on your shoulder. She says, well, at least you've got experience with sheep now.
And he's like, I'll admit I don't really understand the creatures. They're just noisy. I mean, they're soft and all, I get that, but I couldn't get the hang of those scissors. It's just
Yeah, and they're gentle. You have a little bit less fear of backlash from them than you do trying to corral a wyvern.
And Tessa's like, oh yes, no thank you. None of that, no.
And she kind of kills time idly with small talk, and one of the few points that for the sake of fast forwarding, but she says, she makes note of how she's not necessarily surprised that it's Isaac you're butting heads with.
Yeah, that's Yeah.
What?
I know. having taken stock of him and his in the limited time and knowing Tessia, and she kind of just mentions offhand how, yeah, I believe it. But a nice night to see the stars, very few clouds, and out here where there's no lights whatsoever. Not that the lights are that bright in some of the cities. In Lycidian they are. Falstock has those lanterns at night, but they don't really corrupt the night sky. Here, though, of course, there's nothing blocking the view, so you just have this expanse. You can see the fields around you and the stars above, and it makes for a nice kind of quiet evening.
That's it. You just spend some time with Thea, and presumably we don't fall asleep up there because it probably gets a little too cold at some point, and then we go back inside. So.
Yeah, it's not as bad as up in the mountains, but there is just a little bit of a chill out here, especially because of the wind. There's nothing really to block the wind, so as the wind picks up a bit in the evening, it gets to the point where you're kind of warm next to each other, but yeah, it's time for bedtime to go inside.
Okay. No.
Grail, anything for your mother?
I think, yeah, so I'm gonna help her clean up and just kind of go through all of that, but I am going to, if there's a moment of kind of just silence, we're in the same room, which there probably is going to be quite a bit of that because Tessian and Thea are doing their thing, in which I'll kind of just put my arm around her and just kind of quietly say, is everything okay, really, here? Do you need me here, or are you and Pa doing all right?
And she kind of sets down the last dish she's drying, and she says, well, I certainly wouldn't want to keep you. I mean, I can't tell you that things have been great, and you know all the reasons why, but we do okay for ourselves. We're not doing as well as we'd like. We're not doing as well as we were before, but we're not in any danger of losing the farm or anything. It's just we're barely breaking even, and it used to be we were doing better than that.
I know. I will try my best to send money when I can. That was the whole point of me leaving, and I've been a little distracted, admittedly, with my group, but I intend to do my part and help out and send what I can when I can.
She says, well, it's hard for me to be too upset about that. I mean, you seem to be doing something for the greater good, and then an earthquake attacks the house.
Ophelia disappeared with her toy mouse, so that's fun.
Sure.
Here it is.
If the family had a cat, this would be appropriate. They unfortunately do not. She says...
There's got to be a barn cat somewhere.
Right, a stray, yeah.
Yeah.
She says, it seems like you're doing things for good, and the truth of the matter is, part of the reason we know Holden's mixed up with something that's not great is he's been able to send us a decent amount of funds. Probably more than he'd be able to do from honest work. So, between the way he was the last time we saw him and how brash he can be, we can kind of fill in some of the blanks. But at the same time, it's at least enough to get us, whatever difference there is in what we can make here with how sparse things are, he's filled in for his share and probably some of yours too. I wouldn't worry about it.
I kind of laugh and I say, well, if there's one thing that's positive about this is that he's finally earning his keep or something like that.
And she kind of laughs at this. She says, well, whatever he's doing now, he's better at it than he was helping out around here.
He wasn't no good at that, was he?
No, it always seemed like, he looks like both of us in some respects, but it always seemed like he was adopted, kind of. Like he never took to this style of life. Or maybe he's just got more of me in him and he wishes for that wanderlust to take him somewhere else. I don't know, but as you know better than anybody, he just never took to this type of living.
I know. It's just strange because Cormac and myself, we took to it like birds to the wind, and Holden was kicking and screaming the whole time. And I kind of I'm smiling as I say it, thinking about it kind of fondly, and then my smile kind of recedes, and I just say, oh, that boy's going to be okay.
She just shakes her head. She says, I think he will be, but at this point, I try not to let myself worry about it too much because it's sort of out of my hands.
Yeah. You're right. And I kind of my arm is still around her, and I kind of pull her in a little bit closer and just kind of like lean my head on her and just kind of sit there in silence with her. And I finally kind of say, it's good to be home for a short period of time.
She says, well, it's great to have you. It's quiet these days with just your pa and I. And again, haven't seen Holden for a bit and haven't really seen you since you left either. And we're plenty of company for each other. I'm sure he would agree with that more than I would, you know. But it's always nice to have you all home. I'm hoping someday it'll be both of you.
That'd be nice. I can picture it, and I want that more than anything. Someday.
So she puts her arm kind of around you at this point to return the gesture and kind of squeezes your shoulder. She says, so, you've been seeing lots of new places. You met anybody?
And I suddenly start like blushing a little bit. I'm like, Mom. And I say, honestly, I haven't had a whole lot of time to. I see what Koresh is doing. I haven't had a whole lot of time to really meet any. We've met all kinds of people, but mostly in passing. So it's just kind of been a whirlwind, to be honest. But I love my companions. I think they're good, honest people, and that's all I can say for that so far.
She says, well, I reckon I'm not trying to push you in any direction, and it'd be mighty hypocritical of me to tell you to settle down somewhere in the middle of this journey, or just in general, considering my background, but I hope you find somebody.
Thanks, Ma. It's not something I've really considered. I mean, living out here, it's a pretty solitary life with my family. I never really thought about it a ton. I figured it would probably happen at some point, but now that I'm adventuring out in this world, it's come up a little bit in my thoughts. I see Tessian and Thea. They seem happy. It's hard not to think about it, but there are other things that are just taking up my time, and so if something happens, that'd be great, but if not, then that's all right too.
Well, you're plenty young, and
That's true.
there's still plenty of time. Again, I don't want to rush you. I just would like to have grandchildren someday. And I'm not necessarily confident your brother's going to be the best route for that, because I don't know what kind of woman it's going to take to get him. So
Were you present at my Thanksgiving?
Was I?
Shots fired.
And I do laugh pretty heartily at that. And I just say, well, Ma, I don't know if I'd count on that too quickly with me either, but we'll see.
She kind of chuckles at this. She says, all right, I won't pester you about it. I'm just saying, I think you have a better shot at a normal life than he does right now.
And that's probably true. I can't discredit that.
Well, you'll find your room's pretty much as you left it. It was one of the ones least touched by the fire, so it was the easiest to keep up. But bed's still there. Some of the other familiar keepings will hopefully let you sleep well tonight, because it'll be like being home.
It's going to be real nice. It's going to be a good feeling. Are you going to head to bed? I think I'm probably going to stay up and wait a few hours, see if the rest of my group, my companions, are going to stop by and see if Father gets home.
Well, I suspect you're used to keeping later hours nowadays than I am. I am going to be up about the crack of dawn, so yeah, I'm about to head to bed. Your father should be getting back sometime around then, too.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out, and I will see you in the morning. I'd be happy to help you with some early chores, too.
Well, I'll come wake you up then, and if I don't hear anything after the first couple knocks, I'll assume that the city life has changed you.
Not too much. Believe me, Ma. I'll be there to help.
Okay. So she kind of gives you a hug, and she heads upstairs to where presumably, where the master bedroom is. Anything else for you in the evening, Tessian?
No, I mean, I think we're good. Maybe head downstairs, try to get a glass of water. Whatever. I don't know, something stupid. No,
you trip down the stairs and break your neck.
Do they have food that I can raid the fridge in the middle of the night? No. Okay, then I'm good.
I would like to go into Holden's room.
Okay.
And just see if there's anything there that he may have left, or any kind of notes or anything. You never know. He's a sneaky bastard. So, and not that he would know that I would be visiting, but he probably figured I would at some point. So, yeah.
It is locked.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick it, like, obviously.
Okay.
Like,
Let's go ahead and make a dexterity check and add your proficiency.
my thieves' tools. Yeah, just a sec. 14.
Okay. It doesn't take but a moment, really, because you're familiar with this process, having been taught by him. So if anything, he probably should have been smarter than this. But you're able to pick it with just a few seconds' time. And the door swings open into a room that is more sparse than you remember.
Mm-hmm.
There are still, some books in a bookcase. Nothing really left on the walls like the rest of the house because a lot of things were not replaced after the fire. A bed that you remember from back in the day. Sometimes you would sneak into this room and, tell stories at night or whatever. So you recognize the layout. Go ahead and make an investigation check.
Okay. I'm good with investigation. Let's see how this goes. Ooh, 24.
Okay.
Don't look under the mattress.
Yeah, take the black light. A lot of the room seems as you expect it to be. And again, like the bookcase, and there's a desk with nothing that really seems out of order. It's basically as you remember it. When you go look at the desk in more detail, there's kind of a stack of papers to the side of it, and one of it that sticks out a bit catches your eye.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a letter addressed to you.
Oh, that's fun. Okay. I'm going to obviously take it. I will just read it right there. Like, my mom's already in bed. Like, I think Tessian and Thea are busy doing stuff. So, yeah, I'll just go ahead and read it.
It says, "Dear Sis, I'm glad you made it back home. I wish I could be there with you right now, but some things have come up. I hope you're still not trying to find me. At the same time, I wish our paths would cross sometime, but I don't know how that's going to work with what I'm currently into. But I hope you can stay a while. I know Mom and Pa would be thrilled to see you again, and hopefully they're doing well too. Check up on them. They put up a brave front sometimes, but things aren't all that great here. Anyway, hopefully once all this is settled, we can come back here under more normal circumstances." It says, "All the best," and it's signed with a very ornate H.
Okay.
So it sounds as though it was written a while back.
Yeah,
Maybe when he left home as well. You're not entirely clear, but the tone of a couple things like, I hope we don't cross paths. Well, you have since then. Kind of leads you to believe that this is not something he's written since you guys met a few days ago. This is some time before that.
Yeah. But I'll fold it up and I'll put it in my pocket just so I have it. That's interesting. Okay.
And you also can put together, just from knowing him and just the way things are, that he seems to have expected you to come in here at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that the door's locked. It's like, oh, she's gonna get in there.
Yeah. They'll keep Mom and Pa out, but if she wants in here, I guess I'll leave her a note and she'll find it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's helpful. Is there anything else on the desk that, like, books with, like, any dog-eared anything, or, I don't know, letters, other letters?
Doesn't seem like it. And there's a few things here that he had kept at some point, like his own set of thieves' tools that he would have kept in one of the desk drawers that are all gone. Again, seemingly taken with him on his journey. So there are a few pieces missing, but there's nothing that you wouldn't expect. Beyond that, the room doesn't seem very well lived in recently, which again fits with the timeline of events. He hasn't been back in a couple months, so it does seem, very staid, very like... It looks like a room. It looks like a memorial of a sort because it's so untouched to the point where this is the room as you remember it, except it's like a hospital room. It just doesn't have that same feeling to it.
Okay. So I'll leave it. I'll close the door and leave it unlocked. And I'm gonna go up to my room too. I know this is probably really boring for everyone, but I just want to see what's in my old room and if there's anything I can kind of take with me as a keepsake or anything like that.
Well, you know your old room better than me. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was my phone. I'm sorry. There's
Pencil sharpener? There's a pencil sharpener in your room.
It sounded like, I don't even know why
You can take that with you, I guess.
Yeah. I imagine that there's probably. Oh my god!
What the fuck is happening? You knock something off of a side table onto the floor.
I'm sorry. There's
She's
madness.
drunk again.
No, it's just I'm clumsy.
Drunk with power.
Yeah. I imagine that. Oh my god, Feely, stop! Everything's just a mess right now. I hate this. So I imagine that there's probably like a weird like straw doll thing on the like one of my either like on a desk or on a shelf that I'm gonna take, and it's something that Cormac made when I was really really little, and so I'm gonna take that and put it in my bag so that I have it. But I guess it looks all the same from one except for the parts that were burned. But you said that my room was not really touched by the fire, right?
Second story was not as bad as the first.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna look around and kind of like touch kind of fondly, nostalgically, like certain, shelves and like the bed, and just kind of think about when I grew up there and the good memories and the bad memories, and just kind of spend some time in there just reminiscing.
Okay. A very pleasant feeling. And in this case, again, like it's a little different just because you know why you haven't been back. So the fact that everything is still in the same way feels nicer than it does in the case of Holden's room.
Mm-hmm.
The bed is soft and comfortable, has a nice down comforter on it because, sheep. And you can see outside with the curtains drawn still, and they seem to be left open when you're not there. You have a nice view of the night sky yourself from in there, obviously.
Okay. I'm going to go to the window, open it, and see if I can like get up on this sill and see if Tessie and Thea are still out there. I'm gonna spy on them a little bit. I'm not gonna like listen in, but I'm gonna see if they're still up there.
Okay, make a perception check.
Were you ready to narrate the D&D porno, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
It was bound to happen eventually. It was just a question of if it was with me or someone else.
Little
You
Marvin
You hear
Gaye
some
starts up in the
noises and you're
background.
like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Some minor exertions of force.
19.
That sounds like the most like boring porno in the history. 19?
Minor exertion of force sounds like a bitchin' cantrip.
Yeah, use at will. It's really hard to make out their conversation. You can definitely hear them still talking. You get little bits and pieces, like a phrase here, a phrase there, but they're kind of on the other side of the roof because they're on the opposite side of the house from this room. But they seem to be having a nice conversation. Nothing really sounds out of the ordinary. Little bits and phrases. Sometimes you get the context of them, sometimes you don't, but the part you kind of catch up on is basically them kind of talking about the rest of the group and their intentions and, how he likes them overall, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. I'm not gonna listen in really. I just wanted to see if they were still up there, and maybe listen a little bit. But I'll close the window, and I'm gonna go for a walk around like the grounds, and just kind of do a quick not quick. I'm actually gonna take my time because I'm kind of just killing time until I wouldn't be sprinting or anything. I'll check the barn out, kind of like hang out with the sheep, also like walk around the perimeter, and I'm just killing time until everyone else comes back.
Okay. So you kind of walk around the premises, and from all sides, it is just familiar again. You have a lovely view of just a full sheet of stars above you in the night sky, and a decently full moon shining down upon you. Sheep are all sleeping. They're a bunch of lazy fucks, but that's normal.